Welcome to another episode of Critick246. Who was the infamous Matthew Cumberbatch, also known as Screws or Screwface? A name like this would imply that he was crazy. Matthew Screwface Cumberbatch was killed at the age of 35. He was unemployed. He lived in Paris Gap, Westbury Road, St. Michael. Pursued a life of crime from a very young age. According to local media houses, he was executed with a shot to the head. His body was found in a bushy track nearby Ford's Land, Whitehall, St. Michael on the 7th of January 2021. What is even more stunning about this death, it is that the last account of his whereabouts, he was picked up in a black vehicle. Was this a setup, so no one knows who was the driver of this vehicle? Or do we at Critick246 knows? It is also alleged that when the body was found, both of his hands were raised to his face as though he was begging for his life in those final seconds. Even bad boys beg in the end. But anyone who truly knows Screwface would know he was an infamous gun-toting gangster, known to be frequenting the areas of New Orleans, Westbury and Chapman Lane, St. Michael. Many persons feared Screwface as it seemed like he was missing a few screws in his head and he would trip out spontaneously. This type of behavior made his enemies, which he created over the years, very edgy whenever they saw him, as he had access to many firearms and not hesitant to use them to deal with his enemies. They knew he was a ticking time bomb. He was also infamous for his extensive use of firearms, whether it was used for shooting, robbing and also alleged murder. Many persons in the Westbury area and Chapman Lane area can attest to this. Those who were close to him are able to attest to his cruel ways of continuously beating his child mother from Westbury Road, St. Michael publicly. After his brutal beatings he usually left her dripping in blood. His child mother would report the matter to the police to have him charged, then to go to court a few days later to have the charge dropped against him. Then to see them back together. And the cycle continued. Her parents could never understand why their daughter would want to be in love or even desire to have a relationship with a man of this character, but the heart wanted what that heart wanted, licks on top of licks on top of licks. Her father banned Screwface from coming onto their premises, but yet she would still sneak him in when her parents weren't around. Sometime in 2020 she sneaked in Screwface into her parents' house and left him with their daughter. Two men saw that he was at the house, went to get their guns and stood outside of and fired several shots in the direction of the Screwface's chilled mother bedroom. By the grace of God a bullet went through the pillow which his daughter was lying down on and surprisingly did not hit her. This is the type of energy he had around him anywhere he went. Throughout all his enemies, he made one as a result of forming an allegiance with two other men which seemed to brought him to his pending deathbed, or rather his death track I should say. The next episode we will mention one of those persons. Remember to tune into Critick246 on YouTube or Instagram for updates. Anyhow, one night in June 2020 Screwface was liming on Murphy's pasture with other so-called bad boys. They never expected anyone would dare come to that block and violate, as they would say. But lo and behold, on that night two young masked men appeared through an alley and shot at them several times, but again by the grace of God none of them was touched. At this time, he knew that a hit was placed on his head. Or I should say their heads. After living a life of tyranny and perpetuating it on the ones who love you the most and then your enemies, it finally came to an end. Because the same way you were famous for getting taxi men to drop you all over to commit your robberies and shootings, it's the same way the black vehicle led you to your death. As the Bible say, what you sow is what you reap. Live by the sword, die by the sword. And you know, in a country where even when those that commit violent acts in Barbados come to their demise, their friends and family would say, a good man gone. Never truly understood the paradox. However, according to media houses, his mother commented with tears in her eyes, a loving son, as well as his worrisome lifestyle. She knows her son wasn't a saint. The hardest thing is to know. And it is very sad to see a life led like this. To be crowned a malandro, bad boy, gangster, etc. amongst your peers. Then to be killed and leave you child or children with nothing, not a house, trust fund, not a dollar. Then we wonder why the cycle never ends. Because while they are chasing street creds, they never chase the betterment for their children's future. Most often than not, the same people who are on the block with you will not help nor check on your mother or children when you die. Just 2 taps on their devices when your birthday comes around and post up, "Happy birthday in heaven, Chief," that's if they remember. Even Vibes Cartel said it. The streets don't love nobody, but I just want to reiterate that a hit was placed on Screwface head, as you can see the media house said, execution style. Stay tuned for the next episode.